The term liquid media refers to any drawing medium that is wet during application rather than dry. India ink is a traditional liquid drawing medium that dates back to India in the 4th century BCE. It is composed of a carbon black pigment suspended in water. India ink is usually applied with either a brush or with a nib pen. Ink and wash is a drawing technique used in traditional Japanese culture where India ink is applied with a brush and water. Thinning the ink with water is a way to create numerous and subtle values of gray. This process can be used to create very sumptuous and smooth gradients of tonality. Many Western fine artists have borrowed the Japanese tradition of ink and wash in their work. This study of a fountain by Vincent van Gogh serves as a good example. This quick sketch by Rembrandt van Rijn displays all of the delicacy of this application. The hair and dress of his sleeping subject even seem to reference the Japanese culture from which this drawing method is derived. The reason that ink and wash is considered drawing rather than painting is due in part to the fact that it studies tonality rather than color. As I mentioned before, drawings have been historically viewed as being inferior in some ways to paintings. Paintings were generally larger and more complex, and concentrated on color rather than value. Because of this, many Western fine artists have used ink and wash as a sketching medium. India ink can also be applied precisely with a metal-tipped nib pen. The tip or nib has a grooved channel that allows the ink to flow to the paper. The nib must be constantly dipped in the inkwell to ensure the desired flow of ink. Working with a nib pen allows for crisper, more even lines than the ink and wash technique. The predecessor to the nib pen was a sharpened bird feather called a quill. Today, artists don't need to dip nib pens or quills into an inkwell unless they really want to. Many different kinds of ink pens are available that include ink in a cartridge built right into the shaft of the pen itself. Different types of ink pens will create different kinds of line. Fountain pens, which resemble the shape of nib pens, are known for the fluidity of their marks. Ballpoint pens have crisper, more even lines, and felt-tip pens can be used to create broader types of marks. The American draftsperson Edward Gorey used ink pens to create his twisted take on children's book illustrations. Even though his work looks like a style from a century ago, he was indeed living in the late 20th century. These pieces may even seem innocuous unless you read their captions. B is for basil, assaulted by bears. Graphic media like cartoons and comic books will often be drawn using ink pens. Graphic artists appreciate the clean, crisp lines that these tools can create. Older, cheaper forms of printing were also unable to print variations in value beyond black and white. This is why artists who use ink pens to imply volume need to utilize a form of hatching or stippling.